Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're watching us from. My name is Julie Boga. I'm an aquatic animal health scientist based in Kenya, but also doing my PhD in South Africa. I'm also the program manager for the African Fish and Aquaculture Welfare Program, an initiative by the One Health Development Initiative. And we're having this webinar. We're excited to have this webinar. I'll be your moderator. And today's session explores a very critical question: what makes a fish farm finance ready? And we will unpack this through the lenses of experts, from policy, from finance, from banking, from aquaculture. And as we start this webinar, I would just like to invite our panelists to introduce themselves, tell us what it is that they do, their key successes, their achievements, their challenges, and basically any other relevant insights. Dr. Charo, since you're here, I would like to start with you. Please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you, Julie, for having me here and also for organizing this meeting. I think this webinar is obviously one of those that are really needed because of the topic that it's focusing on. My name's Harrison Charo Karisa. I'm Senior Fisheries Specialist at the World Bank in charge of aquaculture. I'm based in Washington, D.C. and have been working before then as a director in Nigeria and Egypt for some time, and then before then I was working as a scientist in many institutions, including at the World Fish, and also in Kenya I was working for Kenya Marine Fisheries Institute at a certain point, and I also worked for the Department of Fisheries. I've done also some work with the United States Soy Export Council as a consultant there, and with others as well. I mean, so it's my life has been aquaculture for most of it. I've also been working also as in capture fisheries, fishes or fish marketing as one of the things that I was working on as in my portfolio. Fisheries management was also part of my portfolio at a certain stage. So I'm a fish person, I would say, in a nutshell. My work at the bank right now is basically to work with different governments to advise them on formulation of sustainable aquaculture investments and projects. I also work very closely with the private sector through our sister organization, the International Finance Corporation, in helping the private sector to also figure out how they can develop aquaculture in a sustainable manner, and aquaculture that is also profitable at the long run. I'll stop there. Thanks a lot again, Julie.
Thank you so much, Dr. Charo, for that introduction. I would like to invite Dr. Friday to also introduce himself. Thank you. Friday, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Julie. So my name is Friday Nwokolo. I currently work with FCMB. I like to refer to myself as a financial inclusion enthusiast. I would say that all my working life has been within the financial inclusion sector. First working with an NGO, and then later with Action. Action is one of the top tier microfinance banks in Nigeria. Before I switched to the commercial bank and then back to the microfinance bank. So today I am the acting MD CEO for FCMB Microfinance Bank here in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Friday. I would like to invite Dr. Pierre Murekezi to also.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you for inviting me, and greeting to all participants. It is a pleasure to be part of this important event. My name is Pierre Murekezi. I'm fisheries officer, and most of my work fisheries officer in fisheries and aquaculture division of FAO, and most of my work here in FAO has been working on aquaculture governance, policy, planning, investment, and partnership in aquaculture. So I'm in the aquaculture area for the fisheries and aquaculture division at HQ, Rome. And I have been work a lot on aquaculture, especially with the establishment of the Aquaculture Network for Africa when I was acting as technical secretary when the network was still with FAO, with us. I was working a lot with LVFO and the AUI bar to see how we can formalize the network now, which is with AUI bar. So it is a pleasure to be with you. I'm looking forward to hear more about the issue of financing in aquaculture, especially in Africa. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Murekezi, the other panelists. We're still waiting for Mayor Fisho Mwale to join us. He's facing some internet problems, but he'll soon be joining. And as soon as he does that, he was going to introduce himself. So just for starters, I would like to, throw a question to each one of you, the panelists. And I would like to start with Dr. Charo. And what indicators do you consider when determining if a fish farm is finance ready or investment ready? And how important is market access or compliance with standards in that equation? Thank you.
Okay, thanks once again for that question. I think it's a critical question on what we're looking for when we are looking at a successful farm that can be invested in. So I will probably start with a story here of just to answer this question on the experience that we have had in many parts of the world, and with the examples from Africa, because this is your focus. One good example is what we were doing in Kenya some years back when we were doing the economic stimulus program. At that time, we were just excited about fish farming, and we thought that there was a lot of demand for fish. We knew that because you couldn't get it in the market. And so we ended up doing a big program focusing on the whole country in getting fish being produced. But we didn't think very well about the markets. And what happened is that we ended up with a lot of fish, but nobody to eat it or to consume it. So it was not a very good experience. We had now to start scampering around, looking at what outlets can we take this fish through. So in a farm that is investment ready must definitely think about market. Market is very critical, especially for aquaculture, because when you get the market right, you don't have to keep your fish longer than necessary in the farm. When the fish is ready to be harvested, this is harvested, is taken to the market, and the farmer can now continue producing another crop. But if there's a failure in the market, one thing happens that the farmer will get losses because those fish will continue eating. And normally when fish grow a bit to a certain size, they do not grow any further. They don't grow as quick as they should. And therefore, that is a time when the farmer should really be able to get the fish out. But any extra day that the farmer keeps that fish, you can imagine how much feed it's going to be eating. And that feed is money. So it is very critical. I think I can't emphasize it strong enough that market access is critical, and that's something we look at when we are looking at investing in a fish farm. Other things that are important, very much important, so nowadays are issues of compliance with regulations, licensing, permits, and so on. These are very critical as well. Why is this important? Is because if you don't take care of these issues, you are likely to have a problem with continuity. Because if you don't have a license, you cannot produce. If you produce, you cannot sell. So that's another thing that is important. Other things that are important to look at is obviously the siting of the farm itself. This obviously needs to be done earlier on before you even produce anything, because it's very, very easy for a farm to not being able to produce anymore if the resources are not there, if it's in a flood-prone area, if the conditions are not quite right. So I think this is an important thing to be looking at. We also need to be thinking about access to inputs and all these things. I mean, these are very important, because if you don't have a problem with access to inputs, maybe you need to think about what kind of farm this should be. Are you going to integrate it vertically so that you can produce your own feed and seed and so on? And it also looks at issues of being able to be resilient at the farm level. I mean, if there are perturbations in the environment, is the farm ready to handle these issues? Other important things which are tied also to markets and consumer acceptance is issues of certification and standards. Compliance with food safety issues, environmental issues, and social standards. I think they are very, very critical nowadays, because the consumer is very much aware about what they want to eat. So it ties, as I said, ties very well, very, very strongly with the market. But also it ties also with the ability for a farm to receive funding. When you apply for a loan, people are looking at whether this is possible, that you have the right your compliance levels. Another important thing, this is not necessary to the farm itself, but it's something that it's getting more and more important for farm, because it also helps the people who are doing maybe insurance services and so on, and also farm funding, is the issue of data. The way you can talk about your data is very critical, because if you don't have a proper data collection, you cannot convince the bankers that your investment is viable, and therefore that makes it very, very difficult for you to get funding, and so attracting investment, it becomes difficult. Lastly, I will also mention here that it is important for farmers to have a business plan. I mean, this is, again, very, very important. A clear feasibility study before you start the farm is important. But as you do that, we will be looking at what business plan you have, because that is how we can ensure that, we can predict the future of that farm. People want to invest in something that has a future, something that is going to last, because they want their money back. And so you need to be able to show this business plan. And if you have some history behind it, that'll be very good as well. I just also want to say this before I go too far, that the World Bank has prepared some guide on this one. We are calling the Global Aqua Business Investment Guide, which you can download free of charge. That is something very important. It helps you to bring together information that is useful for public sector as well as the private sector people that want to invest in aquaculture. I'll stop there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harrison, for that very insightful response. We're learning so much about market success and what makes a farm investment ready. I would like to direct my second question to Dr. Pierre Murekezi. So, Dr. Pierre, how can national and global standards help smallholder fish farms become finance ready and market eligible?
Well, thank you, Julia, and thank you to participants who are participating in this webinar. I think this question is central to transforming aquaculture sector, and I will reply to it by offering 3 reflections based on FAO work with countries and partners. I think the first point that we have been supporting countries as FAO is to make sure that we have a policy institution framework in place in the country in order to have, because financial readiness requires to have enabling policy and institution framework. And from a governance and planning perspective, individual farms do not operate in vacuum. The ability to attract financing depends significantly on supportive national aquaculture strategy and investment plan. I think Dr. Harrison has touched on it a bit, but I just want to emphasize on it that having transparent regulatory framework allow farmers to easily access to the financial. And also another point is to have a clear definition of property rights, license system and tenure rights, because aquaculture is a private investment activity. Although either when we are talking about small scale or large scale, still aquaculture is seen as a private oriented activities. And without having proper right system in place, licenses system in place, it is not easy for the farmers to access to those financial. And at FAO, we have seen that public policy, when aligned with private sector incentive through, of course, mechanisms such as blended financial, credit guarantee, or PPP models, small and scale aquaculture enterprise become more viable and bankable. So the second point maybe I want to touch on is that compliance with standard sign investment readiness. By this, I just want to emphasize that responsible aquaculture investment requires farm to adopt and demonstrate compliance with key environmental, social, governance principles. And with that, farmers must apply good aquaculture practices, animal welfare standard, biosecurity protocol, of course, also sustainable feed sourcing, which is also a key an issue in aquaculture sector, especially in our continent, in Africa. As you know, it accounts more than 70% of the cost of the production in aquaculture. So when you are compliant with those standards, the farmers are not only better prepared to meet domestic and export market, but also more aligned with risk mitigation criteria, which are used by financial institutions in order to assess your application for loan or for other type of financing. So, and on that, in addition to what Dr. Harrison has mentioned about the guide, the AquaInvest guideline that was developed by the World Bank, FAO also has other materials like the technical guideline for responsible investment in agriculture and food system, and also the upcoming guideline for responsible investment in aquaculture, which provides valuable tools to government and investors. The last point I would like also to emphasize is that market eligibility depends on the integration and the value chain orientation. Fish farm must demonstrate that they are not isolated producer, but integrated actors in functional value chain. And by this, this means knowing that their target market, it has been mentioned by Dr. Harrison, market and production specification, of course, building relationship with input supplier, processes, and buyers, a leveraging platform for traceability, certification, and digital visibility also. We have been seeing that in our countries like Kenya, who are improving a lot in terms of digital, where farmers can among themselves connect and exchange information and know where to buy feeds at low cost and so on and so on. So it is also important for farmers to integrate to cooperative or groups or even public-private partnership framework. This has often improved the access to financial and technical support due to economic of scale and reduce transaction cost, because also accessing to finance these days without collateral, without guarantee, it is difficult, especially that we're talking about not most of, but many financial institutions haven't understand very well that aquaculture is a rentable activities that can can also generate income and give the farmers the possibility to pay the loan they have applied for. So it is important to find other alternative mechanisms on how these farmers can access to those financial resources. I will give the example again from Kenya. From Kenya, the recent study we did is that 96% of all farmers have started their aquaculture facilities using their proper resources funded, or either family or other alternative. Only, I think, 16% have access to the loan and other financial institutions. So it shows that a private activity like aquaculture, if you cannot access easily to finance, we need to support government to put in place right mechanism to allow those farmers to access to those available financial mechanisms that are there. But another important thing also from governance part, it's also to make sure that aquaculture, which is also the case of agriculture, to make sure that aquaculture farmers have access to insurance mechanisms that are in place. Some countries have started. I will give maybe the case of Rwanda, where now agriculture farmers, also including aquaculture, now can also access to insurance available package that in the country. And it is kind of PPP that is using there, where government puts 60% and financial institution add the remaining 40% to make sure that farmers can access to insurance scheme, which also can be one of the requirements for financial institution to give loan to the farmers. So without taking so much time, I would just conclude that to try and look financial and market opportunity for African aquaculture, we must invest in more than individual farm. We must invest in the system. It is the system that strengthening institution capacity, improving financial literacy, promoting access to data and digital tools. Data has been mentioned again by Dr. Harrison, because without having this record keeping, the record keeping allow the farmers also to have, but also those record keeping allow the government to put in place the right policy that are based on the facts. If you don't have data from those farmers, you cannot put in place the proper policy in place. There are those data that allow the government to put in place the strategy and the policy in place. So I will just stop by that. I think those 3 points, in addition to what Harrison and others are going to mention, those are what I want to share with you from policy and governance perspective. Thank you, Julia. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pierre, for the clarity and the insights with regards to making a farmer finance ready. And with the same thing about, we've spoken about farmers being bankable, and I'd like to direct this question to Dr. Friday. So from your financials perspective, what makes a farmer bankable? And how do you make them get access to formal markets?
Okay, thank you very much, Julie. And I think that Dr. Harrison has answered much of those questions. And so I'll just speak basically from the microfinance bank's perspective and what we do here at FCMB Microfinance Bank in Nigeria. So at the microfinance bank level, we look beyond the numbers to judge whether a customer is bankable. So because we deal with smallholder farmers who probably lack some basic financial literacy capabilities, we focus our attention on trying to make them get better. And for us, we have identified partners that we work with to get these farmers ready. So what do we look at? Primarily, there are three things, and this speaks to the C's of credits. You look at the capacity of the farmer, you look at the character of the farmer, and I think the third C is collateral. But we here have de-emphasized collateral because we realized that many of these farmers may not even have access to collateral. So we focus more on the character of that farmer and the capacity to repay this loan. So we evaluate the farmer's operational experience, his production consistency, his financial discipline. These are some of the things that we look at. And then we try to find out who do these clusters or groups sell to? Do they have an available market? If they do not have an available market, we try to work with them to see if we can get one. So we also look at the presence of a support network. Who are they working with? Whether they also have cooperatives, extension services, or agribusiness clusters that help them to provide guidance, in the business that they do. In the last 4 years or so, we've been able to disburse over 700 million naira exclusively to fish farmers. And this speaks to our commitment to supporting their growth, the journey. So in the real essence, basically for us, bankability is not just about the size of the operation of the farmer, it's about the mindset of the farmer. Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to accept best practices when it comes to you? Do you have access to market? Do you have access to support systems that helps you to get better? Our role as a financier basically is to evaluate these factors and then, put you on the pathway to sustaining your business through, adequate financing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Friday, for those insights. I would like to direct a specific question to Dr. Harrison. So what are the global trends in access to finance for aquaculture, particularly in Africa? And what roles does standards play in all of this with regards to sustainability, welfare, biosecurity, food security, food safety? So what are the global trends that you're seeing in terms of access to finance for aquaculture?
Thank you again, Julie, for this question. I'll try to be very succinct and quick on this one. You have probably seen our reports that we have been working on that we published the other day on the aquaculture development and how we see it happening. Recently that aquaculture has been voted to be the major producer of aquatic food globally at the moment. This is something we have been seeing happening for a long time. And so I think the emerging trend is people are now, first of all, they're getting aware of the opportunities that aquaculture brings. Because initially people thought that aquaculture was actually an appendage of fisheries. And the narrative has been that aquaculture is there to help ensure that there is no pressure on fisheries. But we are seeing now that that's not actually the case. Aquaculture is actually having its own trajectory, and therefore there is a lot of interest towards investment in aquaculture. This obviously is also true for Africa as well. We have quite a number of investors now that are thinking about Africa as the next frontier. Our report that we produced the other day on harnessing the waters, $1 trillion investment opportunity in sustainable aquaculture, actually indicates that Africa will be the next frontier for aquaculture development. There are obviously a few things that need to be in place for that to happen. So I would say that there is an emerging trend towards more blended finance and the risking of aquaculture. Aquaculture has had the reputation of being very risky to many bankers. And this is something that we have noticed also at the World Bank, and we are looking at getting products that will de-risk aquaculture, so that the more people can invest their money there, knowing that they are able to get their money back. So we are seeing more applications of guarantees, concessional loans and public-private partnerships that are being used now to attract private sector investment, being tools that will de-risk aquaculture investments. There is also some recognition now that there's a group of people that, or a group of investors that are missing out. We have called this the missing middle. Quite a number of the small and medium enterprises actually face this syndrome, if you can call it that, and they are not able to access formal financing at a good rate because of the perceived risks that I talked about, and also that they need the very small capital needs. So typically, the programs that are running, many of the bankers, many of the banks at our level, the World Bank level, they'll be looking for funding the public sector. And this funding normally goes to help the smallholder farmers who might actually access this money in terms of grants. But then when they grow big to become at a level of, to become a bit large, maybe like 2 million investment portfolios, they start getting into problems of where to get the money for this kind of, for their needs. When they go to our sister organization to look for funding, they are told, no, we need you to grow a bit more. So this is a problem that we are focusing on now. It's becoming more and more clear, and I think from the discussion that we're having with many funding organizations, not only the World Bank, we are seeing that there's a good focus on this area now, which is very healthy, and hopefully that in the next few months or years, we are going to have this fixed out. We're also having quite some other trends in terms of the philanthropies and usage of more enterprises coming in using their funding to the ESG to help some of these farmers that are struggling. And we also have a lot of a lot of focus now on things about security, food safety standards. They are becoming more and more used to risk these investments and also to facilitate access to finance. So I would say that in Africa, this is happening as well. We are seeing a lot of booming, aquaculture, especially aquaculture in cages. It's becoming very prominent in many countries. We have seen that in Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, they're doing this quite a lot. And we're also seeing Ghana, Zambia, Malawi, and Nigeria coming up with similar things. So I would say that the global trends towards financing aquaculture are positive in general, but we need still to push ourselves. We need to do more advocacy, more talking to each other, and also talk to financing organizations that they can understand the opportunity that we have in aquaculture, and therefore being able to be in a position to put money where it actually should be. Currently, if you do a scanning of many of the investments, you will see that there's still a lot of more investment going into fisheries management, which is not really in tandem with the global trends towards aquaculture being a big provider of aquatic blue foods. Therefore, these things I think need to change. We need to make this very, very clear and ensure that money is put where there's growth. I mean, if we talk about job creation, jobs will not come from fisheries expansion, fisheries infrastructure. Those jobs will happen when we start putting money into aquaculture, where the growth is happening right now. If you look at the FAO reports, you will see clearly that the trends for aquaculture growth are quite positive, and that's not the case for fisheries. So it's important to make this clear that people need to look at aquaculture as an opportunity that will deliver jobs, will deliver economic growth for different countries that want to engage in this sector, but also to think of creating some kind of balance between the fisheries and aquaculture financing, because these are really critical things. It's not very easy to take immediately the infrastructure that has been in place for for fisheries to change it to aquaculture, and this is happening because sometimes the species are different that we are looking at, and also the areas that are good for aquaculture are not necessarily the areas where we have been producing the fish from capture. So it's important to plan, to plan through with these things in mind. But as I said, in a nutshell, the emerging trends are good for aquaculture, although we are not there yet, and we cannot take a business as usual approach. We need to start, thinking differently and changing our approaches in this regard. Thanks. Back to you.
So just like to get to Pierre's. Hello, Doc.
Yes, I'm here. I'm listening to you.
Okay, yeah. I'm just making a comment as we talk about strategies to de-risk aquaculture as an investment opportunity. I would also just like to pick Dr. Pierre's mind with regards to policy standards and capacity development. So what is FAO doing to support market readiness and sustainable aquaculture, especially in policy and technical guidance? And please, attendees, please type your questions in the Q&A. They'll be responded to at the end of this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, for the question. As you know, compared to World Bank and other financial global organization, FAO is not a donor. It's not. It just supports capacity building and so on. So those are the area what we are doing to make sure that countries, our partners, are equipped with proper instrument to address every issue, either from the market, from the production, from those standards. So we work closely with the governments, either to train their staff, extension officers, to make sure that they are equipped with every trending situation that is the sector is facing. So I think so far in aquaculture, we have been improved a lot. I would say that most of the countries now, they have their specific aquaculture policy or aquaculture strategy. Before, it used to be fisheries and aquaculture strategy, and that aquaculture is regulated or is regulated within fisheries policy or fisheries legislation and so on and so on. Now, the tendency that we have standing alone, countries are starting to put in place standing alone governance instruments in terms of policy, of strategy, and also of the legislation. But also, if we bring back also to the financial perspective, one of the key issues also for some countries, especially when we are talking about large-scale aquaculture production, you need licenses, and the license is still an issue. And to have a license can take forever for the country because aquaculture is not a standing alone activities. You need to have a license to access to water, to land, and so on. And so you need environmental impact assessment. You need to deal with several ministries, and it's time consuming, sometimes also in cooperation. So we have been supporting countries to put in place aquaculture agencies, or maybe extend one, I don't know how to call it, one window, something, a specific office that is dealing with aquaculture permits and other issues. I'll give the case of Senegal, where you have Agence Nationale d'Aquaculture, where you go in that agencies as an investors or as a farmers, and you leave the office with the all documentation you need for starting your aquaculture activities. that also give incentive to investors to enter in the business. Many countries now are having their standing alone agencies that deal with aquaculture. Say the case of Senegal, Morocco, Guinea Conakry, and others also are putting in place a specific office within the Fisheries and Aquaculture Ministry and so on. So we have been supporting countries to put in place those kind of initiative, because we have found that one for the handicap of the aquaculture development in those countries also was the allowed within the ministries, and you end up spending 3 years without having proper documentation to start your aquaculture farm. All other countries also, you need to go from this region to another, to go to the capital city in order to have a license to start your aquaculture. From the value chain and so on, now we have been also supporting countries also to update their regulation to comply with international standards. You know, sometimes when you want to have access to international market, especially European Union, there are a lot of requirements. So to revise, we have been supporting countries to revise their instrument to make sure that they are in line with international instrument and standards, to make it easy for countries for investors that want to export their product. So I would say that have been work a lot with countries to make sure that at least from the governance side, they are equipped with the right instrument in place for the development of the sector. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you so much, Pierre, for that. Just to pick up from where you've left with regards to, making the policy side on how to make farmers finance ready, I would like to ask Dr. Friday, what do banks typically look at when they want to decide on, which farms to give credits or to invest in? And also with that regards, how does demonstrating compliance, in terms of certification, biosecurity, traceability influence the lending decisions?
Okay, so here at FCMA Microfinance Bank, we have adopted an inclusive model that deliberately moves away from requiring collateral from these farmers. We realize that collateral has become a major barrier for smallholder farmers. And so intentionally, we have removed that from as a blocker, and so we have adopted the group lending methodology, cluster lending, bringing them together as cooperatives, doing peer lending, so that, it's easier for them to have access to finance. So we focus primarily on the farmers' business model, their operations, their production viability. This is done by a select team. We have the agri team that ensures who have proper understanding, of aquaculture or fisheries, as the case may be. And so this team does proper analysis. They look at production cycles. They look at the size of the farm. They look at the species to be produced. And they also look at the group's technical capacity or capability. Like I said earlier on, intentionally, we have identified partners like the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, GIZ, FAO. These are institutions that we have partnered intentionally to bring some level of sanity and expertise to our farmers so that, they are ready for financing. Well, of course, there are a few biological and environmental risk assessments that are done. But we need to understand the peculiarities and the situations for smallholder farmers, who especially use earthen ponds to do what they do. So we understand that these certifications are good. We understand that compliance to standards are good, but for us, it's not a showstopper, right? We do not necessarily say we are not going to lend to them because they do not have these certifications around traceability, biosecurity, and all of that. But what we try to do as a bank is to get them ready to get those certifications, to point them to what they need to do to get these certifications while we keep lending to them. But if we come across a group that already has all of these things in place, then what happens for those kind of groups of farmers is that we probably give them blended finance that reduces the interest rates for them because we understand that the risk at this level is lower for them than those who do not have all of these capacities and compliance protocols in place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Friday. You've talked about blended finance, and I would also just redirect a question to Dr. Harrison, because basically what you're talking about is the bank does not necessarily have a problem with regards to compliance, and the certification that does not really guarantee or disadvantage a farmer from being financed by the banks. But then, Dr. Harrison, I would like to understand what kinds of standards or compliance or compliance protocols or frameworks does the World Bank incorporate when it decides on aquaculture financing strategies?
Okay, so thank you very much, Julie, for that question. I think first of all, I will ride on Friday's very interesting and nice presentation of what actually is required by the farmers, and it's quite true. I mean, when we want people to comply to these standards, it's normally taken as if it's a punishment for the farmers, but in reality, this is not something that can be applied to everybody at the moment. We are still talking to quite a number of people, especially the Aquaculture Stewardship Council, to try to bring some of these smallholders into place as well. The reason why these standards are important is because of the market demands. So if a farmer wants to access some of these lucrative markets abroad, especially, it's important for those to happen. But I would also want to say that it's important for farmers to adhere to certain standards because it is good for their business. It's good for them when they do the right standards. They tend to get better results in terms of productivity and so on. So it's not a punitive thing per se, and so that's why we put this into place. It's not that I mean, as I said earlier on, when we are doing loans, we usually work with the public sector. So normally things like food security are still very critical in many countries, and therefore when they get the loans, the governments decide what to do. They decide we are going to put some of this money into grants so that our farmers can produce food for themselves and for others. So that's an important thing. But we have also discovered that when we commercialize our efforts, it's much better. The farmers get more serious with their production. And this obviously is good for everybody. It's good for the bankers, good for the farmers themselves, because they can now start looking at aquaculture as a business. So I wanted to clarify that a little bit, just we are in the same page with my friend Friday here. It's not that we are totally pushing this compliance thing. It's critical for the farmers. And in as much as possible, we want them to attend to those standards for their own good. Now, to come to your question on what standards or compliance frameworks the bank incorporates into our financing strategy, there are actually several. I'll throw them out here quickly. One thing that all the bank projects must adhere to, as far as aquaculture is concerned, is an environmental and social framework and the environmental and social standards guide. These are the things that guide our project design and implementation. And therefore, it is very critical for at that level. And when we are writing the proposals, either public or private, these standards are very important to look at because we don't want aquaculture that will, end of the day, be a problem to the environment. We want aquaculture that is sustainable, environmental sustainable. We want aquaculture that is good for it's also looking at the social frameworks that are in place. And therefore, that is an important standard to framework to look at. We also look a lot at the FAO's ecosystem approach to aquaculture, EAA, and the guidelines that they have produced for sustainable aquaculture. We also look nowadays at our own global aquabusiness investment guide that we produced. These are foundational elements that are required for aquaculture to thrive, and therefore we bring this on board when we are looking at our projects. So for a long time, there's just been the FAO's ecosystem approach to aquaculture and that we've been looking for, but now we have the guidelines as well that are in place from recent years. We also look at alignment with the United Nations SDGs and the Paris Agreement. Again, this is not punitive, is something that is necessary if farmers are going to produce the fish in a viable situation. They need to be looking at what are the how far they aligned with SDGs, and so we encourage that we actually encourage climate smart aquaculture in general, and the Paris Agreement is something that we have in our books now. Every World Bank project must be aligned with the Paris Agreement. So if it's not aligned, then it becomes a very big problem for us to fund that kind of thing. Fortunately, this is now it's a clearly agreed issue that the SDGs and the Paris Agreement are important, and therefore it's not, we don't fight to make this happen. I think everybody knows that this is important to do. The other thing that we also we try to push for compliance with is the third-party certifications. We have the Global GAP, we have the Aquaculture Stewardship Council standards that we believe are important to look at, and others. So I'm just mentioning a few here. There are also national standards that we look at. So quite a number of these third-party certifications that are important to us, and therefore, depending on the level of investment, these are things that we look at having in our projects. I think that should be enough for that question. Thanks. Over to you, Julie.
Thank you, Doc. You've spoken about alignment with SDGs as one of the things that you'd look at. I'm just keen on getting Dr. Pierre's perspective on this. So how can you help national aquaculture strategies be supported to align with international standards to attract investment?
Well, in FAO, the way we work with the country, there are what we call country program framework. It is kind of an agreement between FAO and the country and the country which is signed at the country office. So it is where countries identify their priorities, and we support country based on their priorities. So it has to be a demand. It's without having the demand from the country, it is not easy for FAO just to jump in. So I would say that the way we work with countries, it's based on this country program framework, but also there is also another way on if it is in a global issue and we want to include in the country in that initiative. But I would say that the policy, the way we support countries to improve their policy, it's based on their priorities and their need. But when we support countries, we make sure that what we give to the product we give to the country is aligned with all international standards. FAO is also one of the implementing agencies for these SDGs, and we provide we provide indicators, a lot of indicators in terms of employment, in terms of nutrition, and so on and so on. So one of the key elements we look at when we support country to putting in place the aquaculture strategies to make at the country level, it's okay because they know what they want. At regional level also, but usually when we intervene, to make sure that the instrument that is in place is in line with international standard and so on. So that's the first thing we do, and we look at all those instruments that have been cited by my previous, but most importantly, now that we have this GSA guideline for sustainable aquaculture, which was adopted, we make sure that because it was endorsed by those countries and it's the recent and the first, let's say, international instrument dealing specifically with aquaculture, now it has incorporated all those elements. So we make sure that their strategies are in line with this new adopted international instrument, which is the GSA. So now the key element we look at, it is this GSA, which incorporates all those other previous, so including this the code of conduct for disposal of fisheries. We have also got also the what's called the aquaculture roadmap and so on. But all those elements are incorporated in this GSA. And now what we are doing, we make sure that the instruments that are developed at country level are in line with this instrument. But if I can come back about the global trends, I think Alison touched on it a bit, but I would like also to highlight our worries as FAO now. It's what's called geographic imbalance in production, in aquaculture production. I know we are talking about financing, but for us, our key mandate is to fight hunger, food security. And of course, when they are financing, when you finance and so on, there is production increase, which also address the issue of the food security. Just sure that we bring this security. For now, the tendency that we have, okay, in coming up to 2032, of course, the production will be stable. It will increase at 10%, which is still good. And the current consumption we can meet. But if we don't, again, that's how the financial and to invest in the sector come on. If we don't increase the production, especially in Africa, where currently we are producing less than 3% of the global production, in 2050, aquaculture for Africa needs to increase at 75%. Globally, 25%, but in Africa, we need to increase 75%. So investment is needed in the country to increase the production, but also to address the issue of the food security. That's what I wanted to add from what Alison was just mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pierre. As we talk about increased production, we also want to ensure that it's an increased production of, quality products, healthy fish. So as we look at this in terms of financing, I would like to understand from Dr. Friday, what types of financial products or partnerships do you have that could make aquaculture more attractive to the banking sector to ensure that it's actually something worth investing in?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said earlier on, you need partnerships, definitely. You need partnerships to make things work. Conventionally, banks are designed to make profit, right? But within the financial inclusion sector, within the microfinance banking industry, we look beyond financials. We also look at impact, social impact. And so there is a part of our reporting, both to regulators and to the board, and even to the funders. There are areas where we have to report what kind of social impacts we are making in the business that we are conducting. And so those realities are there for us to face. And that is why we intentionally seek for partnerships that help us to promote some of these social values that will help our farmers get better. So for instance, we realize that financial literacy is a problem for smallholder farmers. So we work closely with international NGOs to ensure that our farmers are prepared, get financial training, literacy training. We also specifically look for agricultural institutions that help them to acquire best practices, international best practices in aquaculture, so that, it helps them to get better at what they do and, of course, improve their productions and the kind of outputs that they get from their farm. For us, one key solution is to ensure that institutions or financial institutions get sector-specific loan structuring. When we started out we started with bullet repayments, options. So they pay their money at the end of the cycle. Traditionally, microfinance banks give loans and take repayments on a monthly basis, right? But for the fish farmers, if you do that, it will not be productive for them. So we just take the money at the end of the cycle of farming. So it's just a bullet repayment. So you have to intentionally, as a bank, design products that are specific to the needs of the farmers and how they want to make things work. We also have what we call the input financing. So in this model, we manage our risk by, rather than disbursing cash to the farmers, we pay to verified suppliers who have solid and good inputs, and so inputs like feeds and what have you, fingerlings, juveniles, and all of that. So when we have identified these key distributors who have standard certified inputs, we pay directly to those input suppliers, and then the farmers are supplied with those inputs and equipments to ensure that they get the right set of inputs for better production. So banks need to be intentional around designing products that suits the needs of the farmers, directing them, teaching them, providing technical assistance, providing financial literacy programs that makes these farmers get better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Friday. You've talked about financing, and so as AfriWell, we advocate for safe, ethically produced and sustainable aquaculture, and you're talking about finance models. And just to build up on what you've said, I would like to ask Dr. Harrison if he could share examples of successful, responsible finance models or programs for fish farms, for other developing regions that could be adapted locally, and also, in other agricultural sectors that could be adapted for aquaculture. What successful models, can you share with us?
Okay, thank you, Julie, for that. I think this one Friday could even do a better job than me because he has more examples of success stories, working with farmers directly. But I can share on a global level what we have been doing. I mean, I look at countries that have managed to make it happen, and countries that are we can learn lessons from what is going on. I have a few examples here that I can share with. We are looking at countries like, for example, Ecuador, that have done very well on aquaculture, shrimp farming. And the reason for that is because they were looking at they were very diverse. They integrated diverse models into their activities. Others were doing vertical farming and so on, vertical integration. And this helps a lot, but also the issues of blended finance coming from different financials I think is critical for their success. We have also a good story that our friends have been telling us from Lesotho, that is the Lesotho trout industry there, that has built a very, very good international knowledge on marketing. And now they're able to export their fish to as far as Japan. So they looked at market and built some brand, from there. So, and they are producing very good quality fish. So that is a good model that I could bring on board these two. Then we also have from the I have another new example that I just learned from our friends in Tanzania. I think the way they have been able to get funding to their farmers is very interesting. They have been able to get funding to the youth, and they have used a revolving fund where farmers are able to get their inputs. They are able to get their feed and seed together. Then they're also given capacity building, so they are being trained on different skills that they need, so that at the end of the day, they are able also to access business and investment ideas and training. This helps them at the end of the day to pay themselves. I mean, they are able to actually put a salary for themselves from the money that they have. So I think that is a very good example of some successful activity that can be borrowed by some of the listeners here. I think in general, I would say that one of the things that has been missing all along in some of our programs is that many times the farmers are not given enough funding. So the farmer has to be grappling with feeding their own families. At the same time, they have to feed their own fish. When there's poverty, when there's no money enough, that becomes very, very complicated. So I think we are learning that some of the approaches about financing should not be basically focus on just the traditional way, which is give a few people a little bit of money because you are doing a program, a project. That doesn't work. We want to be able to look at the individual as a farmer who needs to produce without stress. And we also want to be able to have farmers that are producing at a large scale. I learned also from some other colleagues in Kenya, this is a story I can also share, where the farmers are put into a group, and then they are given this blended financing. And in that respect, I'm talking about Aquaculture here. Maybe some of you know. I thought that was a very interesting example of how to help farmers. Instead of giving farmers money, you give them the inputs, and you ensure that they are well educated on what they need to do. And at the end of the day, you ensure that the market is also ready at the right time. I mentioned this earlier on, that market is very critical for the farmers. We don't want a farmer that to have to go around looking for the market. The market should be available for them. When the fish is ready, it should be harvested and taken out of the farm. It saves that farmer a lot if he has to sell the feed that he would have, feed that fish for one extra week. That's already a big profit. So we are looking for ways like this. They look very simple, but there are ways to improve our situation as farmers. So I believe that we are, there are many other examples that we can share, but these are, I wanted also to bring the principles here that it is important to give the farmers enough funding to do their work. And you mentioned also, if I can make a bit of a comparison with what we are seeing in agriculture programs, I would add one or two things here. One is the contract farming and outgrower schemes. This is something that is being used a lot in many countries. We know that it has been happening in Ghana, in West African countries, also in cocoa. We have seen it happen for coffee sectors, where smallholder farmers are linked to market and finance. This is something that we are learning to also do in aquaculture at the moment. And then the other issue that we have also, I can mention here, is the issue of blended finance platforms that are used, for example, in sustainable livestock and horticulture, that are combining donor, public and private capital to ensure that the farmer is able to access money at cheaper interest rates. That makes it easy for them to count profits instead of accounting losses. So these are some of the things we are learning quickly from other groups. The other thing that I'll mention that we are also looking at is the issue of insurance, crop insurance, and how that can be applied to aquaculture, because aquaculture for some reason is thought to be more risky than agriculture. And I think in some respects, the kind of money that we can make from aquaculture is much easier to make than we are doing in agriculture. So I believe that part of the problems and challenges that we have not been speaking very well about ourselves. We should be talking, expounding the advantage that aquaculture has over livestock and crops, even as we learn from them. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harrison. As we look at increasing production, we're also looking at ensuring that farmers have access to markets. But as we look at market access, we are also looking at ensuring that they produce a quality product that can actually attract not just the local market, but also the global market. And with this regard, I would like to ask Dr. Pierre, how can governments better support farmers in adopting fish welfare, food safety, and traceability standards to ensure that they can actually access these global markets? And okay.
Finally, you can see me or hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Fisho.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm here, I'm watching you.
I don't know if we should let you introduce yourself now that you're here. Better late than never. Thank you for making time for this. Maybe just introduce yourself, tell us what you do. You can share your success story, what made your fish farm finance ready, then we can proceed with the questions.
Yeah, well, I think let me just introduce myself, then I'll catch up with the conversation. I'm so sorry to disturb the flow of a very interesting conversation. My name is Fisho Mwale. I am the founder and chairman of Yalelo Limited, an aquaculture company based in Lusaka, in Siavonga, sorry, in Zambia, in Siavonga on Lake Kariba. And I'm also the president of the Aquaculture Development Association of Zambia. Thank you very much all. I'll contribute as we go along.
Thank you so much, Fisho, for making time. Maybe before we proceed, the only thing I would like to know is from your experience, what made your fish farm finance ready and what practical steps helped you become eligible to formal markets?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing I would like to share with everyone or the stakeholders on this platform is that we do tend to have a romantic view of aquaculture or fish farming. It's not that easy. And because across Africa, it is seen as a relatively new developing sector, there is therefore not there is no matching finance facilities and assistance from existing financial institutions as well as government to match this development, this developing sector. So most of those who have succeeded have had to resort to creative and innovative financing models. Now, it also goes according to the scale of the particular entity that you are engaged in. We are at a very large scale. We are now hitting 20,000 metric tons per annum. And it's therefore different in terms of financial requirements or preparedness for such a magnitude project as compared to one who is startup or who is a small or medium scale. So all this requires different models at different developmental stages of the project. But I think to critically answer the narrative here, preparedness in terms of the project requires first and foremost a clear business plan. And you have to develop a comprehensive business plan which outlines both production, market strategies, and financial projections. Accompanying this, I think that there has to be capacity for financial records and financial know-how. As I say, this all depends on the size of the project and where you want to go in terms of your project. But the other aspects, of course, is understanding the regulatory compliance and requirements. Now, one might think this is not an important sector, but remember, most of the countries that are engaged in aquaculture now are coming from capture fisheries. And there is a transformative stage here where you are transitioning from capture fisheries to commercial or aquaculture.
My apologies, Mayor Fisho, we cannot hear you properly.
Enterprise, environmental, conducive regulation in the
I think Dr. Fisho, Mayor Fisho has a problem with his internet. So I'll probably just go back to Pierre with a question that I initially asked on how governments can better support farmers in adopting fish welfare, food safety, and traceability.
This internet is killing me here. Oh, I'm back. I'm back. Oh, my goodness me. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, we lost you for a moment. We could not really hear what you were saying. Maybe Pierre can respond to the question, then I can ask you your question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Julie. Well, this is not really my area of expertise because we have a dedicated team that work on biosecurity and so on, work directly with the government. So, but FAO has been working a lot with the government, putting in place this, what they call a PMP, which is Progressive Management Pathway for Aquaculture Biosecurity. There are a lot of programs there to train farmers on the issue of biosecurity and so on and so on. So what the government can do and what they are doing, first, if I remain at the policy level, to put in place also the policies that that promote biosecurity for the industry. But that's not enough. It has also to put in place program to train people, but also equip them when needed with the proper instrument when it deal with biosecurity issue at the farm level. And on the food safety issue, of course the government has to revise again their food safety policy and legislation and so on. There are a lot of international documents that are there to guide countries to improve their food safety policy and legislation, and among them you have Codex Alimentarium that has all those elements to to improve the food safety issue in the sector. And that also, we are talking about access to international market also. That's one of the elements also those European countries and advanced countries look at when they want to partner with the country to access in their market, to make sure that their food safety legislation in place and but contain also the all in line with international standard. I would say that governments, what they need, not only having policies in place in terms of biosecurity, but put in place also programs that accompany those farmers at the farm level to make sure that the trend, because for those small scale fish farmers, they may not have the right equipment and skills to address the issue of biosecurity at the country level. I would say that policy, but again also when needed, which are accompanied with programs, training programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pierre, for that. My last question to Friday would be, what advice would you offer farmers on improving their financial literacy and loan readiness?
I mean, it's pretty simple. Work on your character, right? Character for us is everything. Be willing and ready to learn. So as a bank, we are willing to walk that journey with you. Just make yourself available. Keep records. Avail yourself of financial literacy. Work with our partners, institutions that we work with to get yourself ready for funding, and ensure that you have a history around what you are doing, so that when we come around, we can see what you have done so far. I mean, it's as simple as that. We believe that if the farmers are successful, then as a bank, we are successful. It's a win-win situation for, I mean, everybody within sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Friday, for that. My question to Harrison would be, what recommendations do you have for the African governments and development partners to make aquaculture more investable and in a sustainable and responsible manner?
Thank you, Julie, for that question. Yeah, I would say, I mean, that's huge, but we can break it down into some few points that can help African governments. I think, first of all, I would say that this is the moment for Africa, I would say, because the banks, not only ourselves, but I would talk for the World Bank, we are very much interested in developing aquaculture within the continent. Everybody is at the bank now very much aware about what aquaculture can do. That has not been the case a few years ago. So I would say that this is the right time for African governments to engage with the bank, ensuring that they can get the support that is required. Now, key recommendations that I would bring in for governments and also development partners to ensure that they focus on aquaculture that is more investable. I would say the first thing that is very critical is capacity building and investment in research and development. Because this is an area that is lacking in many countries. In fact, one of the things that I really, it discourages me a bit, I would say, is that when you go to some countries, there is no faculty that is teaching anything to do with aquaculture. I mean, in some countries, I won't mention some, but I think this is well known if you check, that there is there's no process for helping farmers to get the training that is required. There is no good extension services in those countries. There isn't good support for research. And if we are talking about aquaculture, we're talking about something that requires a lot of innovations. And therefore, it is important that governments spend some more money into this area. This can be done through partnerships with research institutions and national experts, We at the World Bank have been trying to do this quite a lot. We are looking for South-South cooperation. Recently, we have been dealing on seaweed with the South Korean government. We are working with the Chinese government. We are working with many other groups that and the governments that have the capacity to help us in this area. So I would really put this as the #1 thing that needs to be done. The other thing that is critical for aquaculture to thrive, to be investable, is to help the private sector with the establishment of aquaculture suitability mappings or aquaculture development zones that come from those mappings, because this is an area that will help the private sector to know which are the areas that are suitable for aquaculture development, which the government is committed to making available for infrastructure that relates to aquaculture. Again, this is very important because the infrastructure is not always available for aquaculture in many places. And therefore, this concept of zoning is very critical. It helps to get the farmers and the investors pre-approved permits. And also it enables that the required infrastructure in place. We are talking about here, I've called storage facilities. We are talking about good roads that leads to these places. We are talking about the access to inputs and also access to markets. So it's very critical that governments play their role and ensure that they help farmers and investors into a country. The other thing that is critical I will bring here is the issue of licensing and permitting. This is an area that will be very, very important because through one-stop shops and long-term rights that come with permits, it's very important to regulate this area, ensure that farmers who want to invest, or investors in general, who want to invest in particular countries, they can be given sufficient permits. We need to think about aquaculture as a long-term investment, not a very short-term thing. Because when a farmer or an investor wants to do a feed mill, he wants to be sure that, or she wants to be sure that that feed mill can bring in back the profit. So we need to think about the time it takes for the farm to recoup their investment, their capital. Another thing that is important is the provision of investment incentives. Tax breaks, I think, very important. Grants where necessary, and as I said, maybe those those revolving funds are critical for smallholder farmers to be able to make it in aquaculture. And this can be, of course, tied to sustainability and social responsibility that different companies can bring on board when they are investing in a country. Standards and certification. Again, I will say this. I mentioned this a little bit earlier on when I was talking with my friend Friday here. But I think it's critical to improve market access and investor confidence. We need to have those standards. And the government should be seen to be supporting some sort of certification and standardization here. Obviously, when it comes to making these things work, it's important to also think about the strategies and policies. This is something that FAO will most likely want to talk a bit more. Hopefully, maybe Pierre can do that. But I think when we want to develop aquaculture, you don't just wake up and do it. You need to be thinking about some sort of strategy and a policy shift towards aquaculture development. And therefore, we need to have those documents put into place. The process of preparing a strategy is already a critical thing when it comes to ensuring that a country gets ready for production and also access to markets. But another thing that I would want to mention here is the fact that it is very critical for farmers, for governments, when they are working and planning for aquaculture development, to think also of things like where they are going to get the markets, to think about where they are going to get the inputs, especially feed. Feed is a big issue because it's one of the things that many countries are not prepared for. You cannot probably depend only on importation, so you need to think about what are the options for you to be able to get sufficient amount of feed that's required for the fish. Otherwise, you might end up not making it right. The other thing, of course, related to that is the issue of hatcheries. that are able to produce the different species. For many times we have had countries wanting to do aquaculture, for example, mariculture, but not being able to have the right hatchery for this. So it becomes very, very complicated and difficult to do. Lastly, I will say that we need all governments included and donors to think about support to SMEs with tailored financial tools. This is an area that has been lagging behind, and therefore we need to support SMEs with whatever they need, tailored financial tools, business literacy programs, access to formal supply chains, and so on, so that they can be able to quickly become profitable. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harrison. Clearly a lot of information there. I'm actually thinking we need to have another webinar to pick it up, to pick this conversation up, because there's a lot of questions with regards to financing. So let me just, direct this question to Mayor Fisho Mwale. As a big investor, a successful farmer, what advice would you give small-scale farmers who are struggling to become bankable? And at the same time, what kind of support, either financial or otherwise, made a big difference in scaling your farm?
One. Yep, I'm back. Well, I think it's how you run your business. The advice that I can impart, the principles are the same regardless of the scale. In our case, first of all, we invest a lot in our trained and skilled manpower or staff, because they repose the intellectual capital that we have developed over the years. And if you're going to talk about production standards, you're going to talk about environmental standards and whatever applicable management systems that are required to make a successful business, you need to have the right and proper personnel. You need to have the right knowledge base, as well as knowledge sharing, which will improve the output of your staff. So there should be investment not only in the staff that you have, but you should also invest in the knowledge. What we found is very important is the production standards that we set for ourselves. We've implemented best practices in fish farming, which include things like optimal stocking densities, which require skills and knowledge. We have ability to control our feeding regimes and the sustainable growth cycles, which leads to ensuring that we have high quality fish production. Then, of course, the aspect of environmental standards, which leads to, let's say, biosecurity, eco-friendly production systems, and you have sophisticated aspects of production, such as the recirculating systems, which you have to implement, and how you apply your water usage practices, etc., because the fish has to thrive in good water quality. And how do you maintain that if you do not have a knowledgeable workforce who should be applying those principles? The aspect of food security and food safety is very important. This is why we hardly utilize hormones, or our fish feed is non-GMO. I think let me pause here by also saying that in order for you to have a successful aquaculture industry, you must have the basics, meaning good seed, fingerlings, and good feed. These are complementary. If you do not get those two things right, then you are doomed to failure. And then, of course, the processing aspect of your product before it reaches the market. meaning that the integrity of your cold chain must be top class. And you can't have that if you do not have qualified personnel. So I go back again to the investment that we have made in our own people. As I said, this is to scale, meaning that whether you're going to produce 2 ponds, whether you're going to produce 2 cages, whether you're going to produce 100 cages, the template is the same. It's just the different scales. To the budding of entrepreneurs, I want to say that, first of all, it's not easy. You have to be committed. You have to be dedicated. When I started this business, I thought that within 2 years, I would be driving a Rolls Royce. I'm still riding a bicycle 10 years later. You can't be a millionaire within 10 years. And we've invested huge sums of money, but I think these are legacy projects. These are projects which contribute to the growth of the economy, to the agriculture, to the contribution of the GDP, and create jobs and create meaningfully and healthy livelihoods for hundreds and hundreds of people, simply because Africa, or Zambia in this particular sense, has vast resources of water. And that is a basis of job creation, how we efficiently utilize these natural resources we have. So anyone can grow to the level of Yalelo. You have to start somewhere. Start small. And I think the basic concept which I like sharing is that your approach should be modular, meaning you build on a successful foundation, another foundation, until you grow pole pole, slowly but steadily. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Fisho, for those very powerful remarks. We are also learning on how to grow our aquaculture as a business. And it's just interesting to see how significant compliance and standards is to your business, and the fact that you advocate for the production of safe, fish welfare conscious and sustainable aquaculture. That's really something for us to take. And my last question to Pierre would be, in your view, what role do fisheries officers play in bridging the gap between fish farmers and financiers?
Well, as I said at the beginning, that the sector cannot develop in vacuum, cannot operate it in vacuum. We need to have sure that we have right policy, dedicated policy to support the development of the sector, and that's the role of the government, the role of the police officers, the role of extension officers. Those are working directly with the government. So we need to make sure that those policies are there, but cannot, to make sure that they can also be implemented. You have resources to implement those policies. A policy can be there, a strategy can be there, good, very well written, but the implementation became difficult, because sometimes we talked about the question of record keeping, data, and so on. You develop your policy based on the reality in your country to make sure that what you are proposing, you are going to implement this. It's just not a copy paste because Kenya is doing well. You think that Rwanda will do the same. They don't have the same resources. So having the right policy there. We are talking about investment and the financing again. And we talked about PPP. Those are also the role of the government again. Most of African countries, they have PPP, public-private partnership legislation, strategies, but when you analyze them, they don't cover anything related to aquaculture. So it means that there is a need for the government, those policy officers also, to revise, to update those policies to cover the sector. The sector is growing, is contributing. There is a need therefore make the sector not growing in the vacuum. So that's the thing. And the last thing that maybe I would say I would add from the governance perspective for the aquaculture sector to grow, especially in our in Africa, we need the government will to support the development of the sector. It is a private-oriented sector. World Bank cannot come, or FAO and so on. It is the role of the government. And if the government is not, doesn't have this willing to support the development of the sector will not really grow and attract more investors. I think Zambia is an example. Fisho Mwale knows it. Zambia has just finished to implementing a project for 50 million just for aquaculture, because the former, the country there was a will for the country to support the development of the sector. And that's only one thing. I'm sure after that project, a lot of things has changed in aquaculture sector in Zambia. So those are few things I would like to add in addition to what my other colleagues have mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pierre, and thank you to all our panelists for your insightful contributions from the real-world farming experience to global development perspectives, policy frameworks, and financial realities in today's discussion. And this discussion has truly helped us to demystify what it takes to make a fish farm finance ready and market eligible. So it's clear that it's just not about finance, and finance is just not about capital. It's about compliance, capacity collaboration, and credibility. And with the right support systems, standards, and partnerships in place, the future of aquaculture in Africa will be both sustainable and inclusive. And now I want us to transition to the questions, because we have a lot of questions for you. And we invite the questions from the audiences. I want to go to the chat box and look at the questions here. Someone is asking, David Paul is saying, can we get the recording link after the meeting? Yes, you will. We will share a written award document of all the questions and responses. Because of the aspect of time, we may not be able to respond to everything. But then henceforth, Ngongola, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, is asking, what is FAO doing on the situation in Zambia, where capture fisheries is still ahead of production compared to aquaculture? Can we say it's because of funding, or there must be other factors?
Well, I think Fisho Mwale will be in best position to reply to us. But as aquaculture is still new. Fisheries has been there for many years. So it is not that today we are going to wake up and the country is going to wake up and overtake from capture fisheries. I don't think that I don't have currently the available data for Zambia, maybe Fisho we say it, but I know with the government initiative that has been in place last 5 or 7 years, I think the aquaculture sector has improved a lot in Zambia. I'm not sure if it is about the funding that has been put in capture fisheries. As I finished my statement, I was saying that the government of Kenya puts $50 million just for aquaculture sector. So I think it is not only the government is not only investing in capture fisheries. They are also investing in aquaculture sector. Maybe it's too early to see the changes, but I know if the government continue with the current policy, I think both sector. And we are also not, FAO is not also advertised for aquaculture sector to overcome the capture fisheries. We want both sector to grow in a sustainable way. So either capture fisheries or aquaculture, both sector need to grow in a sustainable way. We are not like just focusing on capture fisheries and all that grow. We take both sector at the same level. So it's up to the country also to know their priorities. But what I'm sure is that aquaculture sector is taken seriously by the government of Zambia.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pierre. I would like to ask, I'll just ask the question then. I think this could be directed to Dr. Charo. I am working as an aquaculture specialist, fish pathologist in Nepal. It's been almost 1 year of my work here, and the biggest challenge here is the lack of a functional fish diagnostic lab in Nepal. I want to establish a few fish diagnostic labs here, but due to financial restrictions, I'm unable to do that. Is there any possibility I can apply for fund for that project?
Well, I don't know if that is my question, but let me answer it. Well, I mean, the World Bank it provides funding in two major ways. One is private sector, another one is the public. So depending on where you're working, it could be a national thing. A diagnostic laboratory could be a national thing that can be done by the government, obviously, to support the farmers with this support. It can also be done by private sector. So it depends on where you lie. If you lie in on the private side, you need to think about getting private funds. That's then the issue of business plan and all that needs to come in place. And then you can approach our counterparts IFC. They will talk with you and see whether that is possible. But money is there. I mean, it's just a matter of knowing what your approach is here in this case. So I would welcome you to probably get to me later on, and then we can see what kind of help there can be.
And Dr. Charo, before I let you go, there's another question to the World Bank. So what measure is the World Bank putting in place to make sure that finance is accessible to licensed aquaculture startups in Zambia? And what financial institutions is the World Bank working with to fund startups in Zambia? This is from Moses Kalasa.
So again, I don't want to talk too much into this one because I was in Zambia the other day and we discussed. Mr. Fisho here is very much aware of what we are discussing. We had been approached by the government of Zambia to talk about small and medium enterprises. So that's something that is actively being pursued. I think it's an area that could help in this area. Startups are a bit complicated. So one of the things that we are also looking at is to set up a funding that can look at sort of some kind of incubation facility that can help these startups to get the funds that's required. But I would say at the end of the day, access to public funding will be the best way out for startups because of that is the least risk you can have. You cannot go to the financial institutions and say you're a startup and they agree with you. It's very difficult. So I would think that access to public funding is important and access to maybe partnerships that support R&D programs will also be critical for this kind of thing. So I believe under the Zambia Aquaculture and Enterprise Development Program, ZDP, there was some element of working with the government's institutions to help SMEs to access funds. I would think that those are the kind of programs that we will be supporting going forward.
Thank you so much, Dr. Charo. I would like to direct this question to Friday. Is there any insurance solution for aquaculture in Africa? Then after you respond to that, I will also ask you two more questions that go with finance. So is there any insurance solution for Africa, aquaculture in Africa?
Yeah, so currently in Nigeria, there is no specific solution for aquaculture. So what we do mostly is to take the group life and then special perils. So special perils cover flooding, especially. So those are the two major insurance products that we take out for our fish farmers or aquaculture, basically. And what's the second question?
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I didn't get it.
The second question is, what are the most common gaps or weaknesses in fish farms when it comes to attracting investors or loans? And how can smallholder fish farmers realistically assess their own investment readiness?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, from my experience in the last few years, it's just been sincerity. So sometimes you come across a group of farmers that are not sincere by themselves. And this is something that you find not just within the aquaculture value chain, but in credits administration generally. So once in a while, you come across people who are fake or people who do not have genuine intentions. And so when that happens, you have to manage the situation. I'll give you an example. We funded a cluster of farmers, but there were about 10 of them. And along the line, we got there one day. And I would say that, you know, there was also poor monitoring from my team in that location, because usually we would visit or would do periodic visits to see what is happening. But in this particular case, my team on ground did not visit for a long time. And so by the 5th month or 6th month, when the payment was supposed to come in, we didn't get the repayments, and then they visited only to find out that they had sold off, you know, all the fishes in the 18 ponds. And then when we asked questions, they lied about it to say that, you know, there was flooding and there was none. So sincerity of papers is a key factor for us, and that speaks to character, like I earlier mentioned.
Thank you so much, Dr. Friday. I will direct this question to Mayor Fisho because he's a businessman. I'm not sure if he's here. So Alex Kimathi from Collect Aqua Business from unnecessary exploitation by brokers and market cartels for aquaculture produce or product.
Yeah, oh, okay. What is the question?
So the question is, Alex Kimathi from Kenya says, what strategies should be taken to protect aqua business from unnecessary exploitation by brokers and market cartels for aquaculture produce or product? What is your experience as a businessman? How did you go through the issue of brokers and market cartels?
Okay, well, first of all, I think you have to understand that we are in a sector where everywhere is registering a fish deficit. That fish deficit is a vacuum which needs to be filled by increased production. So because naturally there is a shortage in the market of one product, which of course even attracts inflationary prices, etc., and so on. Cartels only form when there is high value to be made at that particular moment by people coming together and monopolizing one product. I think the answer to that is to look at this as an opportunity for business expansion. Only through increased supply of that product we will be able to mitigate some of these shortcomings in the business environment. And when you talk of cartels, basically you are probably referring to those who are marketing that product. You will not find a production unit, let's say like my company Yalelo, forming a cartel with another production unit. No, because probably the fish species is different, probably our volumes are different, etc., etc. So that is a market dysfunctionality when you talk of cartels. The answer is to see at what opportunities are created in the market for increased production. For us, we are very excited. We think that the deficit which is recorded in Zambia in terms of meeting demand is not only restricted to Zambia, but it is also a deficit regionally. So we are looking at that as a potential market into which we can expand. Nothing much I can say about the dysfunctional markets which exist due to a shortage of many other products.
Thank you so much, Mayor Fisho. Then this goes to Pierre. Can FAO support, this is from Gifty Afetsi, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Can FAO support the establishment of regional training hubs or hatchery excellence centers in West Africa, most especially to women committed to venturing into aquaculture?
Well, yes, we can support, and if there is not only, but I know there have been a lot of programs in West Africa, including also the exchange knowledge between, especially for women from Senegal that are coming from Nigeria, especially for this fish smoke. So there are a lot of initiatives. The only thing, it's the way we operate. We don't operate directly with individual. It has to pass through the government. That it's upon request. It's just a matter of making a request through the government to the FAO representative, either in Nigeria or in the region. But this is that is our area of competence. Of course, we can do, and I think some of those questions maybe we are going to enter in details and probably consult also with appropriated office to make sure that we give also correct. If there is a way for us also to have all those questions, because I was going through them, and we can give also appropriate reply with proper guidance and where to go directly. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Pierre, for that response. Like you said, we have a lot of questions. So basically what we are going to do after this is consolidate all those questions, put them in a Word document, send them to all the panelists, get responses, and then we're going to share it with all the attendees of the webinar. Because due to the aspect of time, we cannot respond to all the questions. Otherwise, I would like to just say thank you so much to our panelists for making time to give us those very insightful, presentations. From your work and your experiences from different, your specialties. And thank you to our attendees for making time to attend this webinar. We thought we were going to do 90 minutes. We've actually done 2 hours. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for this very engaging and interactive conversation that we've had. I feel like we need to do another finance webinar because there are clearly a lot of questions that still need to be responded to, and the different dynamics of finance that most people, including me, would like to learn from this panel. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your insights. And now please feel free to leave the webinar and we'll share more information in our WhatsApp group. I believe all of you have the access to that WhatsApp group for our future webinar series. Thank you so much. That's from me and OHDI and AFUL. We're really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Mayor. Goodbye.
Bye.